Welcome to the Rocking Your Role show with me, Jenny Garrett, executive coach, author, and speaker. Today I'm joined by Dorothy Dalton, all the way from Brussels. She's a global talent management specialist, and she'll tell us lots more about the other roles and her extensive career. Welcome, Dorothy. How are you?
Jenny, thank you for having me. I'm very well, thank you, and enjoying the sun in Brussels.
Oh, we've got some sunshine here for a change as well, so we're matching you.
Exactly.
So, really great to see you. We met at the Jump conference recently, which took place in Brussels, which was a
Yeah.
fantastic event. So, we're new acquaintances also. So,
Yeah.
it will be great for me to know a bit more about your background and what motivates you and what you do. So, please share.
Well, I'll just elaborate a little bit on the global talent management strategist. Basically, that's HR speak for that. I work on both sides of the executive search spectrum. So research, identifying candidates, developing, obviously providing services to executive search organizations and corporations. And then I flip that over, and all the knowledge that I've gained on that side of my business, I use in career transition coaching. So I'm certified coach and trainer, and I work essentially right through the spectrum from hire to retire.
Right.
It's
Okay.
it's quite interesting.
It is actually because usually, you find a lot of people concentrate with a particular age group or a particular sort of small area, but it's the whole spectrum. So you really do get to see almost like the life cycle of someone's career, don't you?
And that's what I like.
Yes.
That's exactly what I like. And you see the changes, and you can, if you coach someone, particularly when they're in their late 20s, early 30s, and you pick them up later, when they might be either contemplating leaving the workplace or they might be contemplating a promotion. And I find that continuity and understanding of the process really helpful. So that's what I like about it.
Fantastic. And what did you do before?
Well, my early career, I'm an economist, and
Ah,
I've got a postgrad in human resource management. And so my early career was in corporate HR.
mhm.
And I moved then into European sales and marketing. I wanted to get out of HR. And 20 years later, I circled right back and combined the sales and marketing and HR, and went into executive search. So I started off just doing search. And little by little, people would come to me asking me for help on their CV and different problems. And I thought, I should circle back to this professionally, and that's exactly what I did. So I recertified as a coach, and I'm also a trainer. And once I became known as being a coach, I got started to ask to do training events like you
Yes.
see
Yeah.
in Jump. And so basically, I'm combining all aspects of my career. I've synthesized them all at the golden years of my career, as I like to say.
Okay, wonderful. And yeah, you delivered a fantastic actual session at Jump. I really loved it. It was so interactive, and I think everyone thinks they know about networking, but there was some nuggets for me to take away, which was really wonderful. And that's I think what everyone wants. Is there anything new, something that I haven't been told before? And you were able to share that, and that's not an easy thing to do. So yeah, it was really, really great and really great opening. Thank you thank you. So how long have you been in business?
As an entrepreneur,
Yes.
probably since 1995.
Right.
So I relocated to Brussels with my now ex-husband, and I set up a business. And after our divorce, he went back to whence he came, but
Right.
I had my business and client base here, so I stayed and developed it.
Wow.
And I've enjoyed absolutely every single minute of it. So I'm really glad that I've done it.
Yeah. So, are you bilingual?
Um, well, I would say to a Brit that I was bilingual, but I
Okay.
wouldn't say to a Brit that I was. I mean, I would say in Belgium that I have strong French. I mean,
Right.
I have strong French.
Okay, but that hasn't been a hindrance in any, the language hasn't been a hindrance to your work.
Well, in Belgium, you're probably aware that there is Flemish and French,
Yes.
and English is actually the bridge language between the two demographics.
Mm.
So in some ways, it's been an advantage, and sadly, perhaps that English is becoming the lingua franca in terms of business. So very often people actually seek a first language English speaker to do global searches, for example. So
Okay.
I find it. I'm glad I'm first language English speaker actually,
Yes.
because it is an advantage. I think
It's worked in your favour.
worked in my favour at least. Yeah.
Fantastic. And in terms of your work, is it mostly in Brussels, or is it, because I heard you say internationally, do you work internationally? I'm asking specifically as well because the radio station that this interview will go out on is based in Toronto, although this show goes out internationally anyway. So I just wondered what what your reach is, or who you want to reach.
Well, I work globally. So I do a lot of work for international companies wanting to place people or look for candidates in Europe, but also international assignments for European companies. But the other thing that I should point out, which is how we got to know each other through Jump, is that obviously I'm a co-founder of 3Plus, and that's a platform for advancing women in their career and in the workplace through networking, sponsoring, and mentoring. And that is a truly global organization. We can, and one of the things I'm sure you know, and the McKinsey study showed this, is that women quite often lack international exposure.
Yes.
So that's what we try to do, is we try to connect women internationally with mentors so that they can gain some sort of external focus or non-local culture focus on their work situations. So work completely internationally.
Brilliant. Oh, that's great. So looking for a mentor internationally, then go along to the 3Plus site and have a look and see what you can find there. Yeah, that's fascinating actually that women need more international support. And I was also thinking when I was listening to you about women generally and putting ourselves forward, and the fact that sometimes in search it can be often quite male dominated, and there might be a little bit of bias then in the search. So it might be really helpful if you're thinking about recruiting more women into your business to have a woman ahead of the search company that you're going with, or a woman leading that search. What do you think about that?
There are actually quite a lot of women working in
Right.
search. I think that there are a number of issues with regard to women. The first is that women don't put themselves forward.
Yes.
So that's one thing. And there was a lot of talk about the confidence gap and the percentage of women that put themselves forward.
Yes.
My experience, it's not the 100% that's been recently quoted. I think it was in an article in The Atlantic, but I would say it is less than their male counterparts. They also tend to drop out. So if something changes and it becomes slightly tougher, they tend to drop out. But they also have more restrictions on mobility.
Yes.
And I'm finding that a lot, particularly as we get more single parents.
Yes.
That a lot of women are restricted in terms of their mobility. So I think that partly accounts for why they're not as, they don't make up the numbers as often as they should. But what we're starting to see is that particularly as companies want to strengthen their pipeline, the talent pipeline, I'm actually being told to make sure we've got 2 women on the shortlist.
Good. Oh, yeah.
That's quite interesting, and they come to me because, and they would come to 3Plus for that reason, is because we've got obviously a network of women who are groomed and hopefully would be open to the opportunities that come up.
Wonderful. That's really pleasing to hear that they're saying make sure there's 2 women on the shortlist. I think that's really, really encouraging, and it shows an open mind there. So on this illustrious career, nearly 20 years really running your own business, I wonder what sort of challenges you've faced and how you've overcome those. And it could be before you ran your own business as well, but what sort of challenges have you faced?
I think that some of the most difficult challenges have been the international moves. I mean, I've done 3 of you count moving from England to Wales, but
Right.
some people wouldn't count that.
Okay.
But 2 international moves.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter if you move 2,000 miles or 200 kilometers. I mean, particularly in Europe, that takes you into very different cultures.
Yes.
So I think they've been quite challenging, and having to position yourself, reinvent yourself, either extend your career or set up a business. So I think that's been quite challenging. But I think one of the toughest things has been, and I think, which is why I connect with so many women, is the challenges of raising a family,
Yes.
and having a career. And I think that probably I've encountered every possible sort of childcare situation, even me looking after my own kids for a while, and I was probably the worst option. That whether or not it's, daycare or nannies or whatever, working part-time, all of these things that you do. And it's just a balancing act until you find something that works for you.
Yes, it's a real challenge. So, in terms of moving, I can imagine the culture, because actually setting up a business can be a bit of a minefield anyway, not really knowing the right way to go about it. But in another country, there can be lots of different rules and laws, can't there, that you have to, be aware of before you start. So, I imagine research is pretty critical.
I think that the biggest change that I made was years ago when I moved to Luxembourg, and I joined a startup, and I was taken on to run the office, the HR, the admin. And then one day the sales director was hospitalized, and we were only 4 people. So somebody had to take his appointments, and I was the only person in the office. So the owner of the company said, well, Dorothy, you better go out and take those appointments.
Gosh.
Well, first of all, I didn't even speak French.
Yes.
This is 30 years ago. Didn't speak French. I did have a sales background. I'd worked in HR and training with sales, but I hadn't actually been a salesperson.
Yes.
And I actually went out, feet on the street,
Gosh.
and just loved it. Absolutely loved it. And I had to basically go back to the bottom.
Yes.
And I went from being a manager to a sales rep.
Yes.
And did my 8 calls a day, and I think that was the most valuable experience that I had to build a path to becoming an entrepreneur. That I did have really hard sales experience.
Fantastic. Gosh, so tell us a bit more about sales, because I think a lot of people either think it's a bit of a dirty word, or they think it's something they should be doing, but they don't know how to, or feel fearful about. What would you recommend? Would you recommend that we all go and just start, making our 8 calls a day, or what are your thoughts about its importance as an entrepreneur, and maybe any tips for us?
I don't think it's important as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I think it's critical.
Right. Okay.
I mean, you can't have a business if you're not selling a product.
Yes.
And if you're reluctant to sell a product and you're an entrepreneur, then you should either get a partner who is familiar and able to sell, or you should think about doing something else. But I think one of the things that I've noticed, and this is perhaps true of women, that I think that sales is an art and a science. So you get people who are naturally skilled and take to it, but it's also something that can be learned.
Yes.
So I think if people find themselves struggling, then they should take a course or get professional help, because even the worst and the most fearful and the shyest people can be taught to sell to some level.
Right. Okay.
So it's not something that should deter people. A lot of women say that, oh, I don't like to call people I don't know, I don't like to be pushy, I don't like to do this. But women are great relationship builders.
Yes.
So it is something that once they get over that fear of seeming pushy or aggressive or assertive, that they can learn to do in a very subtle way, and rather than think it of selling, but persuading people to buy.
Okay.
So I really like the sales side. It's fun.
Yes. Okay. So not selling, persuading people to buy. I think that's a nice turnaround and different perspective on it. And I think if you've got something that you really believe in and you believe that can help people, then it's a responsibility, isn't it, to help them have it. So I think you're not doing them a service or yourself a service if they walk away without it.
Well, and I think for entrepreneurs, they have to be able to sell, otherwise they'll go out of business.
Yes.
And I think even in a corporate organization where, some organizations, sales are the gods. They're the ones with the fancy cars,
yes,
with the and the suits and the ties and, fancy designer jackets and all the rest of it. But without sales and production, all the other functions would be redundant. So sales has to be part of any organization.
Yeah. So you mentioned this the aspect of your life which was about getting, the childcare right and managing being a mum and running your business. And my book is a lot about that, really juggling the many roles we have as women, and often and maybe being the main earner in the home as well. There's I think it's wrought with so many obstacles and challenges and opportunities, the key to rocking your role in life is very different for different people. So I suppose when you felt that you had it right, or when you felt that it was working and you were rocking your role in life, whether that's now or when you had maybe younger children, I'm not sure how old your children are now. What was going right for you? What did you have in place to really feel like that?
Well, I think particularly because we're women, I don't think we ever think we've got it right.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, I think that no matter what we do, there is always this little voice that says that we could have done something differently or better. So I think one of the things that we have to do, and in the post that you wrote for 3+, which will go out, where you say you have to let go of the guilt.
Yes.
And I think that's really, really important. That you are doing the best that you can.
Yes.
I've given presentations with like black banana on my shoulder,
yes.
my toddler on my shoulder.
Yeah.
And I've done that, and I've left kids, sobbing their hearts out at the door with the nanny as I've left. And somehow you just find a way to make sure that you understand that you're doing the best that you can for your family and also for yourself. So I don't think there is the best solution. I think different aspects worked well at different times. The other thing I would say to people is you have to be flexible. There is no one formula that is going to work right the way through. And one of the important things to do is to step back and say, that's not working so well. What do I need to do to reach these goals? And your goals are going to change as your kids get older. Whatever happens, that they will make different demands on you. I mean, that's what happens.
Yes.
So, do you have children?
I have a 12-year-old, and I have 3 stepsons, but they don't live with us. Yeah. Yes. So
you know that.
Yeah, I completely know that. And today, this year has been an important year, first year of secondary school. So I felt I needed to be around more. So it's absolutely true what you say, which is I probably felt I had it just right, and then I felt I had to change it because her school situation changed. So and it is that constant being flexible and reevaluating what works and what doesn't for both of you. What I particularly liked is what you said, which was not just what's good for them, but what's good for you as well. And I think if you're not happy, in your role, in life, in work, then you can't really be there for other people. So it's a little bit like they say on an aeroplane, isn't it? Put your mask on first, make sure you feel okay and feel sorted, is a critical part of it.
And certainly my kids were very supportive, that they if I had calls to make and they were at home, that they were always really sweet and stay away from my office and like that. So, and I think they grow up in that sort of environment, and as a result, my daughter actually, who's 30, is a lawyer, and she's got very clear ideas now about what she wants for herself and how she's going to structure her life, and even though she would never admit it to me, I think that I've played a part in her getting there.
Yes, I'm sure she will, and and she probably do what I did when I had my daughter, which was suddenly say to my mum, "Sorry, sorry for everything," and I really appreciate you now because I just realise how hard it is.
I'm not in that place yet.
No. So, what next for you? Where are you taking 3+ and your global search business, or are you? Yeah, what's going on for you, and what new projects or what's next?
Well, 3+ has. I mean, we're still in the startup phase. Obviously, we want to extend that. We're launching coaching and training products, particularly online, because women are very busy.
Yes.
And that's one of. I mean, it's a difficult thing because women like the one-to-one contact that they get from particularly going to events, but at the same time they don't have the time.
Yes.
So we're trying to create something that is interactive, very much like the workshop that I did, where they can feel part of it, but it's something that they can do from the comfort of their homes or offices and in the evening, and they can look at recordings. So we intend to develop that.
Brilliant.
And I think from on the other side of my business, my goal is to write a book on
Woo!
career transition. So
Excellent.
I just have to make the time for that. So
Yes.
that's on my to-do list.
Excellent. Oh, that would be great with all the benefit of your knowledge. It would be so helpful to people. And as you said, if they for some reason can't come along to one of your workshops or interact with you another way, you would be able to touch so many people with that book. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I look forward to seeing it. Yes, you
Well,
put
I
your
think I have a bit of weight, so but
yeah.
it's still, I've got the outline, so I just have to fill it in.
Well, that's good. You've got the outline because that's often where people fall down. That they don't do write an out. Sorry, don't write an outline. They just write, and then they go off in lots of different directions and never finish. So, having a framework in place is the
Well,
biggest
you're an
part.
author, so is that what you did? Did you have?
Yeah, I had a book coach, and she helped me with a framework and to map it out in a very focused way. Once I'd mapped it out, I was able and then she encouraged me just to stick to that because
Yeah.
it's so easy to be distracted. And I wrote my book 4 o'clock till 6 o'clock in the morning. That's what I did.
Oh,
Yeah, for 3 months. That's how I wrote it. Yeah.
I'm not an early morning person.
Oh,
And well, maybe after the call, you can send me the name of your book coach.
yes, very happy to do so.
Yes.
Very happy to do so. Yeah, I found it. You fit in the hours where you can, but for me, it was to wake up early and get that bit of my day done and know that I'd done it. So for you, have there been any? So talking about books, have there been any books, any quotes, anything that's really stayed with you as sort of real nuggets of insight or information or motivation for you through your career?
Um, I'm a really avid reader, so I can't say that there is one book that
Okay.
was seminal for me.
Mm,
I think I got a lot out of the Stephen Covey Seven Habits,
yes.
particularly the ones for families, actually,
Ah.
more than the other. I found that very helpful. Certainly, a lot of the early feminists like Erica Jong. I
Mm,
mean, I thought they were very formative.
yes.
And from the sales side, it was the 1 minute salesman. So when I was making my 8 calls a day, I would sit in my car with my with my book and assess each call to see what had gone right, what had gone wrong. So that was very, very helpful. But
Lovely.
I find that this is where the internet is so good because you get a lot of this content
Yes.
through now at such a high pace that you can cherry pick little bits. And I quite like that.
It is so easy to research now, isn't it? And I can't, I don't know how I would have survived in my work really before. It's because we have so much at our fingertips. It just
Exactly.
works perfectly. And although some days it's overwhelming to have so much information, other days it's absolutely perfect. Yeah. So, any last tips, ideas, thoughts for the women listening, women in business, existing in that constant roller coaster of good things and disappointments on a daily basis? Any last tips or thoughts you'd like to share?
And in fact, people always ask me this, and I can never think of one. I've always got about 30.
Well, a couple would be fine. Maybe not 30.
Um, I would say always ask,
Yes.
always put your hand up, no matter how scared, that old quote about no matter how much your voice shakes, always put your hand up and
Yeah.
ask. So I think that's a really good one. And I think the other one is to invest in yourself.
Mm,
I mean, that's something that we found I found generally is that women will spend £1,500 on a Mulberry handbag,
yes.
and then they would balk at spending £50 on a webinar.
Mm,
And at some point, I think women have got to take care of themselves because
yes.
nobody else will. And I think that would be the one that I would say, just make sure that you take care of yourself. So that would be my one tip.
That's a fantastic note to end on. And take care and invest in yourself. Yeah.
Exactly.
Wonderful. It's been amazing to speak to you, as I knew it would be.
Had really fun.
Yeah, it's been great, and I'm sure everyone will get lots from you. I didn't ask how to get in touch with you. Your website addresses, please, or social media, whatever works for you.
Well, my website is www.dorothydalton.com. So
Okay.
all the contact details are there. And the 3 Plus website is www.3plusinternational.com. And the 3 is a number.
Wonderful.
So, and I'm on Twitter. I mean, if you look up Dorothy Dalton, then hopefully I should be on the top page. If I'm not, tell me, and I'll have to do something about that.
Fantastic. And have you got newsletters and things like that people can?
Um, I don't send out a newsletter from my own website, but 3 Plus has got an e-gazine, which your article
Oh,
will be
yes.
running
Yeah.
in 10 days.
Yes.
So that will go out, and they can just sign from that directly on the website. Follow us on Twitter. We're very active on Twitter. We've got a great LinkedIn group. It's very lively, so just look out for 3 Plus on LinkedIn.
Fantastic. It's been wonderful to speak to you. I hope that I'll get to see you again soon.
I
Uh,
hope so too.
yes, and do take care. Thank you so much.
No, thank you very much, Jenny. Thank
Okay.
you.